Object relation psychologists have a very well definition and a very elaborated and looks very intuitive formulation of how personality disorders and personality relates to internal representations. The term object is an internal representation. When you say self-object, it's an internal representation of myself, and the object is an internal representation of other people. So it's like a social internal representation of people and the relationship between them. Now, the idea of internal representation in neuroscience is well known. We know the homunculus, for example, where we have an internal representation of our body, and probably we also have an internal representation of the whole world inside our brains. And it's very intuitive because we can actually think in such a way that we can simulate the environment. Let's say you can wake up in the morning and think, if I tell my boss this, he will answer something else. And if I act like this, he will respond like that. You can do that because you have an internal representation of yourself and your boss and everyone, okay? Now, the idea of how these internal representations are built in, we also know a lot about that. We know, for example, about the Hebb algorithm, Hebbian algorithm, which is based actually on insights by Donald Hebb. He was a psychologist, and he said that if neurons act together synchronously, then the connections between them are strengthened and the opposite. So if you have an experience, groups of neurons are activated and the connections between them are strengthened, and this way you can embed and encode the experience in the brain. So as we develop, our experiences are encoded in the brain and create internal representations and internal objects, like object psychologists say. So it seems like object psychology is a very strong way to actually describe how the brain acts. So this dichotomy between psychology and brain neuroscience is not real, actually, because when you have these experiences and you have internalization of these experiences, neuroscientists would call that experience-dependent plasticity. Plasticity will be the connectivity, the Hebbian algorithm, and the connectivity dynamics that is responsible for that. So we can begin and reconceptualize psychotherapeutic and psychological interventions as brain interventions, because once you have psychotherapy, and you have different experiences which are correcting or directing the internal representation, that would be actually acting on the synapses and on the dendrites, on the dynamics of Hebbian algorithm in the brain in order to make a better internal representation, which would be less symptoms. So actually, we can begin and see how psychotherapy is actually an experience-dependent plasticity brain therapy.